Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Vishnu Vishnupada Shridhar Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Nitil Vishnu Mahabhagavat Srila Bhaksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Nitil Vishnu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrind Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदाति गिरिराज महाराज की जय श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जय श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय श्री भक्ति देवी की जय श्री पूर्णमासी योग माय की जय श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Alright. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tar Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Kritam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajahava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhine Dostam Sarva Bhutta Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatang Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridantasto Yabatrani Vidhunoti Surit Satam Nashta Prayeshvavadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavaivasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshai Shiptashtakama Ditaram Madhe Kripa Maitam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Dandavat pranams Rup Manjari Didi, Ganga Didi, Raseshwari Mataji, Pujumna Prabhu, Mantra Murti Mataji, Haribol. So, where are we? We're reading from text 20. Alright. Yesterday, actually, let's just do the 2 previous days. We heard Parikshit summarizes and inquires further how can humans be saved from entering hellish life, and then Shukadev tests Parikshit Maharaj, and Parikshit Maharaj passes the test, and then he establishes bhakti. So let's read. This is hearing about the suffering of man falling into hell in the last chapter of the 5th canto. Parikshit Maharaj becomes compassionate on all these suffering men in hell and inquires how they can be saved from such conditions. To enthuse Shukadeva Goswami, he first reveals his understanding of the previously explained subjects. And he explains, dear Shukadeva Goswami, you've already described about Nivritti Marg, which is the path of restraint, which is the path of liberation, and then Pravritti Marg, the path of impulse, which is, the path of elevating. One is the path of elevating yourself to Vaikuntha, or to Brahmaloka, actually, yeah. And more specifically Brahmaloka. And then the next is Pravritti Marg, which is elevating yourself to the heavenly planets. Then he explains hellish life, the first Manvantar, the dynasties of King Priyavrata and King Uttanapad, and cosmology. Now, kindly tell me how humans may be saved from having to enter hellish conditions in which they suffer terrible pain. Then Shukadeva Goswami tests Parikshit Maharaj and establishes the position of bhakti. Note, now Shukadeva Goswami prescribes atonement according to karma to test the proficiency of his student Parikshit, to understand his opinion in the matter. Karma-kondic atonement. If a person does not, so Shukadeva Goswami said, if a person does not perform prescribed atonement for sins committed by his mind, words, and actions, he will enter the hellish planets after death. One second, let me just fix this mic. There. Like a doctor treats a disease according to its gravity, one should undergo atonement as per Shastra and according to the heaviness or lightness of one's sins, quickly before death. Parikshit Maharaj rejects atonement. Sin even after atonement. So Parikshit Maharaj says, by seeing and hearing, the jiva knows that sinful activity is injurious for him. Still, he helplessly commits sin again and again. Therefore, what is the use of atonement? Atonement is like an elephant bathing. Sometimes a person is very careful not to commit sins, only to again be victimized by sinful life. Therefore, I consider atonement useless. It is like the bathing of an elephant who throws dirt on his body immediately after the bath. Note, Parikshit rejected karma as a solution for protecting one from sins. Now, Shukadeva Goswami prescribes Gyan to further test Parikshit. Gyan Kanda. So now Shukadeva Goswami says, real atonement is Gyan, or enlightenment and perfect knowledge. Karma-kondic atonement cannot completely destroy sin, because it doesn't remove ignorance, the seed of sin. So it's just going to grow again. Gyan is like the cure for a disease. Just as a diseased person who eats the right food is gradually cured, a person who follows the rules of Gyan gradually progresses towards liberation from material contamination. The rules of Gyan. By following austerity, celibacy, mind control, sense control, charity, truthfulness, cleanliness, rules and regulations, A sober and faithful person who knows Dharma is temporarily purified of all sins. It is like a fire that destroys bamboo trees. Note, but the roots of the bamboo will still remain and grow again at the first opportunity. Thus, even after practicing Gyan, sins may reappear. So the link now to this next section, to the Bhakti section, is therefore the answers concerning Karma Kanda and Gyan Kanda couldn't satisfy the great devotee Parikshit. Seeing the dissatisfied Parikshit, Shukadev Goswami now speaks about the solution according to the devotees. Bhakti established. Unalloyed bhakti completely destroys sins. Only a rare person who has adopted complete unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can completely uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. Note, the sun need do no more than merely manifest its first rays for fog to immediately disappear. Similarly, even with a slight appearance of bhakti, all the fog of one's sinful life is immediately vanquished. Bhakti is the best atonement. Mere austerities and other processes cannot purify a sinful person, as much as dedication unto Krishna by serving the Lord's devotee. The path followed by the pure devotees who are well behaved, virtuous, and surrendered unto Lord Narayan is certainly the most auspicious path. It is free from fear. A liquor pot cannot be purified even by washing it in many rivers. Similarly, non-devotees cannot be purified by their process of atonement even if performed very well. Devotees never see Yamadūtas even in dreams. Persons who only once absorb their mind on Krishna's lotus feet and who have become attracted to his name, form, qualities, and pastimes do not see Yamaraj or his order carriers with ropes even in their dreams. Such people have accomplished all atonement. Note, even once remembering the Lord is sufficient. What to speak of many times? Even thinking within the mind is sufficient. What to speak of hearing or uttering his name? Even the materially attracted mind is sufficient. What to speak of a mind without material attraction? Thinking even in dreams is sufficient. What to speak of actual meditation? So, link. To substantiate what is mentioned in this last verse 19, that devotees never see the Yamadūtas even in dreams, Shukadev Goswami narrates the story of Ajāmila. Right, so let's begin. Atra chodaharanti mam itihasam puratanam dutanam Vishnuyamayo samvadastam nibodhame. In this regard, Shukadev Goswami says, in this regard, learned scholars and saintly persons describe a very old historical incident involving a discussion between the order carriers of Lord Vishnu and those of Yamaraj. Please hear of this from me. Dandavat pranams Rasangi Mataji and Rukmini Didi and Gargaraj. Haribol. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Puranas, or old histories, are sometimes neglected by unintelligent men who consider their descriptions mythological. Actually, the descriptions of the Puranas, or the old histories of the universe, are factual, although not chronological. The Puranas record the chief incidents that have occurred over many millions of years, not only on this planet, but also on other planets within the universe. Therefore, all learned and realized Vedic scholars speak with references to the incidents in the Puranas. Srila Rupa Goswami accepts the Puranas to be as important as the Vedas themselves. Therefore, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he quotes the following verse from the Brahma Yamala. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Viding Vina Akantiki Harer Bhaktir utpatta yaiva kalpate. Devotional service to the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narad Pancharatra is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. A devotee of Krishna must refer not only to the Vedas, but also to the Puranas. One should not foolishly consider the Puranas mythological. If they were mythological, Shukadev Goswami would not have taken the trouble to recite the old historical incidents concerning the life of Ajāmila. Now the history begins as follows. Kanyakubje dvija kashte dasipate Ajāmila namna nashta sadachara dasya sangsarga dushita. In a city known as Kanyakubja, there was a Brahmin named Ajāmila who married a prostitute maidservant and lost all his Brahminical qualities because of the association of that low-class woman. Purport. The fault of illicit connection with women is that it makes one lose all Brahminical qualities. In India, there is still a class of servants called Shudras, whose maidservant wives are called Shudranis. Sometimes people are very lusty, establish relationships with such maidservants and sweeping women, since in the higher statuses of society, they cannot indulge in the habit of woman hunting, which is strictly prohibited by social convention. Ajāmila, a qualified Brahmin youth, lost all his Brahminical qualities because of his association with a prostitute, but he was ultimately saved because he had begun the process of bhakti yoga. Therefore, in the previous verse, Shukadev Goswami spoke of the persons who has only once surrendered himself at the lotus feet of the Lord, Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo, or has just begun the bhakti process. Bhakti yoga begins with Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, hearing and chanting of Lord Vishnu's names, as in the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chanting is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declares, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, Kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatiranyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. The process of chanting the holy name of the Lord is always superbly effective, but it is especially effective in this age of Kali. Its practical effectiveness will now be explained by Shukadev Goswami through the history of Ajāmila, who was freed from the hands of the Yamadūtas simply because of chanting the name of Narayan. Parikshit Maharaja's original question was how to be freed from falling down into hell or into the hands of the Yamadūtas. In reply, Shukadev Goswami is citing this old historical example to convince Parikshit Maharaj of the potency of Bhakti Yoga, which begins simply with the chanting of the Lord's name. All the great authorities of Bhakti Yoga recommend the devotional process beginning with the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, Tannama Grahanadibi. Bandyakshay Kaitavaishchoryar Garhitam Vrittimastita Bibhrat Kutumbam Ashuchir Yatayam Asadehina. This fallen Brahman, Ajāmila, gave trouble to others by arresting them, by cheating them in gambling, or by directly plundering them. This was the way he earned his livelihood and maintained his wife and children. Purport. This verse indicates how degraded one becomes simply by indulging in illicit sex with a prostitute. Illicit sex is not possible with a chaste or aristocratic woman, but only with unchaste Shudras. The more society allows prostitution and illicit sex, the more impetus it gives to cheaters, thieves, plunderers, drunkards, and gamblers. Therefore, we first advise all the disciples in our Krishna consciousness movement to avoid illicit sex, which is the beginning of all abominable life, and which is followed by meat-eating, gambling, and intoxication, one after another. Of course, restraint is very difficult, But it is quite possible if one fully surrenders to Krishna, since all these abominable habits gradually become distasteful for a Krishna conscious person. If illicit sex is allowed to increase in a society, however, the entire society will be condemned, for it will be full of rogues, thieves, cheaters, and so forth. Evam nivasatastasya lalanayas lalayanasya tatsutan kalotyagan mahan rajan ashtashita ya oh my god, ashtashitya yusha sama. My dear king, while he thus spent his time in abominable sinful activities to maintain his family of many sons, 88 years of his life passed by. Tasya pravayasa putra dashatesham tuyo vama palo narayano namna pitruscha daito brisham. That old man Ajāmila had 10 sons, of whom the youngest was a baby named Narayan. Since Narayan was the youngest of all the sons, he was naturally very dear to both his father and his mother. Purport. The word pravayasa indicates Ajamila's sinfulness, because although he was 88 years old, he had a very young child. According to Vedic literature, one should leave home as soon as he has reached 50 years of age. One should not live at home and go on producing children. Sex life is allowed for 25 years, between the ages of 25 and 45, or at the most 50. After that, one should give up the habit of sex life and leave home as a vanaprastha and then properly take sannyas. Ajamil, however, because of his association with a prostitute, lost all Brahminical culture and became most sinful, even in his so-called house life. Oh, sorry, guys. Although that child he had at close to 80 something years old, was the cause of his going to Vaikuntha, so that wasn't so much a mistake, was it? Anyways, sorry. Okay. Sabada hridayastasmin arbhake kalabhashini nirikshamanastalilam mumude jarato brisham. Because of the child's broken language and awkward movements, old Ajamil was very much attached to him. He always took care of the child and enjoyed the child's activities. Purport. Here it is clearly mentioned that the child Narayan was so young that he could not even speak or walk properly. Since the old man was very attached to the child, he enjoyed the child's activities, and because the child's name was Narayan, the old man always chanted the holy name of Narayan. Although he was referring to the small child and not to the original Narayan, the name of Narayan is so powerful that even by chanting his son's name, he was becoming purified. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam. Srila Rupa Goswami has therefore declared that if one's mind is somehow or other attracted by the holy name of Krishna, tasmat kenapyu. Oh, cool. Just worked on this verse yesterday. No, the day before yesterday. Tasmat kenapyupayena mana krishne niveshayet. One is on the path of liberation. So if one's mind is somehow or other attracted by the holy name of Lord Krishna, then one is on the path of liberation. It is customary in Hindu society for parents to give their children names like Krishnadas, Govindadas, Narayandas, and Vrindavandas. Thus they chant the names of Krishna, Govinda, Narayan, and Vrindavan, and get the chance to be purified. Bhunjana prapiban khadan balakam snehayantrita bhojayan payayan mudho navida gataman antakam. When Ajamil chewed food and ate it, he called the child to chew and eat. And when he drank, He called the child to drink also. He always engaged in taking care of the child and calling his name Narayan. Ajāmila could not understand that his own time was now exhausted and that death was upon him. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is kind to the conditioned soul. Although this man completely forgot Narayan, he was calling his child, saying, Narayan, please come and eat this food. Narayan, please come and drink this milk. Somehow or other, therefore, he was attached to the name Narayan. This is called Agyata Sukriti. Although calling for his son, he was unknowingly chanting the name of Narayan. And the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so transcendently powerful that his chanting was being counted and recorded. Sa evam vartamanogyo mrityu kala upasthite matim chakaratanaye pale narayana vaye. When the time of death arrived for the foolish Ajāmila, he began thinking exclusively of his son Narayan. Purport: in the second canto of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, chapter 1, verse 6, Shukadeva Goswami says, Etavan Shankayogabhyam Sadharma Parinishtaya Janmalabha Parapungsam Ante Narayana Smriti. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by acquirement of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of one's occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Somehow or other, Ajāmila consciously or unconsciously chanted the name of Narayan at the time of death, Ante Narayana Smriti, and therefore he became all perfect simply by concentrating his mind on the name of Narayan. It may also be concluded that Ajāmila, who is the son of a Brahmin, was accustomed to worshipping Narayan in his youth because in every Brahmin's house there is worship of the Narayan Shila. This system is still present in India. In a rigid Brahmin's house, there is Narayan Seva, the worship of Narayan. Therefore, although the contaminated Ajāmila was calling for his son, by concentrating his mind on the holy name of Narayan, he remembered the Narayan he had very faithfully worshipped in his youth. In this regard, Srila Sridhar Swami expressed his verdict as follows: Etach char tar upalalanadi Shri Narayana namocharana mahatmena tar bhaktir eva bhur iti siddhanto payogitvenapi drashtavyam. According to the Bhakti Siddhanta, it is to be analyzed that because Ajāmila constantly chanted his son's name Narayan, he was elevated to the platform of bhakti, although he did not know it. Similarly, Srila Veera Raghav Acharya gives this opinion: Evam Vartamana Sadvija Mrityu Kale Upasthite Satyagyo Narayanakhe Putra Eva Matim Chakara Matim Asaktam Akarod Ityartha. Although at the time of death he was chanting the name of his son, he nevertheless concentrated his mind upon the holy name of Narayan. Srila Vijay Dvaja Tirtha gives a similar opinion. Oh my God, this is a long one. Mrityu kale deha viyoga lakshana kale mrityu sarva dosha papa harasya harer anugrahat kale datta jnana lakshane upastite hridi prakashite tanaye purna jnane bale pancha varsha kalpe pradesha matre narayana vaye murti visheshe matem smarana samartham chittam chakara bhaktya smarad ityartha. Directly or indirectly, Ajāmila factually remembered Narayan at the time of death. Ante Narayana Smriti. There's a line missing here, so let me take it off of this mode. Sometimes when it's on the reading mode, it misses a line. Let's make it big so you can see it. Where were we? Oops, no, we were... Oh my God, what the heck? Shoot, I don't even remember what verse we're on. Oh my god. Sorry about this, guys. There, we're on 28. Oh, and I just want to quickly look what verse we're reading up to 39. Cool. That is so true, Rukmini. It's ironic that some people have wonderful devotional names and then some people call them meaningless nickname instead. Yep, fully agree. Sapasha hasatang, sorry. Sapasha hastang strindrishtva purusham atidarunam vaktratundan urdhvaromna atmanam netumagtan dure krida nakasaktam putram narayana vayam Plavitena Svarenochar Ajuhava Kulendriyai. No, Kulendriya. Sorry. Okay. Ajāmila then saw three awkward persons with deformed bodily features, fierce twisted faces, and hair standing erect on their bodies. With ropes in their hands, they had come to take him away to the abode of Yamaraj. When he saw them, he was extremely bewildered, and because of attachment to his child, who was playing a short distance away, Ajamil began to call him loudly by his name. Thus, with tears in his eyes, he somehow or other chanted the holy name of Narayan. Purport: a person who performs sinful activities performs them with his body, mind, and words. Therefore, three order carriers from Yamaraj came to take Ajamil to Yamaraj's abode. Fortunately, even though he was referring to his son, Ajamil chanted the four syllables of the Harinam Narayana. And therefore, the order carriers of Narayan, the Viṣṇudūtas, also immediately arrived there. Because Ajamil was extremely afraid of the ropes of Yamaraj, he chanted the Lord's name with tearful eyes. Actually, however, he never meant to chant the holy name of Narayan. He meant to call his son. Nishamya mriyamanasya mukhato harikirtanam bhartunama maharaja parshada sahasapatan. My dear king, the order carriers of Vishnu, the Viṣṇudūtas, immediately arrived when they heard the holy name of their master from the mouth of the dying Ajamil, who had certainly chanted without offense because he had chanted in complete anxiety. Purport: Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks, Hari Kirtanam Nishamyapatan Katam Bhutasya Bhartur Nama Bhruvata. The Lord carriers of Lord Vishnu came because Ajamil had chanted the holy name of Narayan. They did not consider why he was chanting. While chanting the name of Narayan, Ajamil was actually thinking of his son. But simply because they heard Ajamil chanting the Lord's name, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu, the Viṣṇudūtas, immediately came for Ajamil's protection. Hari Kirtan is actually meant to glorify the holy name, form, pastimes, and qualities of the Lord. Ajamil, however, did not glorify the form, qualities, or paraphernalia of the Lord. He simply chanted the holy name. Nevertheless, that chanting was sufficient to cleanse him of all sinful activities. As soon as the Viṣṇudūtas heard their master's name being chanted, they immediately came. In this regard, Srila Vijay Dvajatirtha remarks, Anena putra sneham antarena prachinadrishta balad udbhuttaya bhaktya bhagavan nama sankirtanam kritam iti gyayate. Ajamil chanted the name of Narayan because of his excessive attachment to his son. Nevertheless, because of his past good fortune in having rendered devotional service to Narayan, he apparently chanted the holy name in full devotional service and without offenses. Vikarshatontar hridayar dasipatim ajamilam yama preshyan Viṣṇudūta varayan asurojasa. Ojasa means with resounding voices. The order carriers of Yamaraj were snatching the soul from the core of the heart of Ajāmila, the husband of the prostitute. But with resounding voices, the messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Viṣṇudūtas, forbade them to do so. Purport. A Vaishnav, one who is surrendered to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, is always protected by Lord Vishnu's order carriers. Because Ajāmila had chanted the holy name of Narayan, the Viṣṇudūtas not only immediately arrived on the spot, but also at once ordered the Yamadūtas not to touch him. By speaking with resounding voices, the Viṣṇudūtas threatened to punish the Yamadūtas if they continued trying to snatch Ajāmila's soul from his heart. The order carriers of Yamaraj have jurisdiction over all sinful living entities, but the messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Viṣṇudūtas, are capable of punishing anyone, including Yamaraj, if he wrongs a Vaishnav. Wow. Materialistic scientists do not know where to find the soul within the body of with their material instruments, but this verse clearly explains that the soul is within the core of the heart, Hridaya. And I don't think that's referring to the organ heart, but that's referring to the heart chakra. If I'm correct, if I'm wrong, you can let me know. It is from the heart that the Yamadūtas were attracting the soul of Ajāmila. Similarly, we learn that the Supersoul, Lord Vishnu, is also situated within the heart. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hridesharjuna tishtati. In the Upanishads, it is said that the Supersoul and the individual soul are living in the same tree of the body as two friendly birds. The Supersoul is said to be friendly because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind to the original soul that when the original soul transmigrates from one body to another, the Lord goes with him. Furthermore, according to the desire and karma of the individual soul, the Lord, through the agency of Maya, creates another body for him. The heart of the body is a mechanical arrangement. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 1861, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridesher junatishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Yantra means a machine, such as an automobile. The driver of the machine is the machine of the body is the individual soul, who is also its director or proprietor. But the supreme proprietor is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One's body is created through the agency of Maya, karmana daiva netrena, and according to one's activities in this life, another vehicle is created, again under the supervision of Daivi Maya. Daivi Hyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Durattaya. At the appropriate time, one's next body is immediately chosen, and both the individual soul and the supersoul transfer to that particular bodily machine. This is the process of transmigration. During transmigration from one body to the next, the soul is taken away by the order carriers of Yamaraj and put into a particular type of hellish life, Narak, in order to become accustomed to the condition in which he will live in his next body. Uchur nisheditas tangste vaivasvata pura sara keyuyam pratishedharo dharma rajasya shasanam. When the order carriers of Yamaraj, the son of the sun god, were thus forbidden, they replied, "Who are you, sirs, that have the audacity to challenge the jurisdiction of Yamaraj?" Purport. According to the sinful activities of Ajāmila, he was within the jurisdiction of Yamaraj, the supreme judge appointed to consider the sins of the living entities. When forbidden to touch Ajāmila, the order carriers of Yamaraj were surprised because they had never been hindered in the execution of their duty by anyone within the three worlds. Kasyava kuta ayata kasmarasya nishedata kim deva upadevaya yuyam kim siddhasattama. Dear sirs, whose servants are you? Where have you come from? And why are you forbidding us to touch the body of Ajāmila? Are you demigods from the heavenly planets? Are you sub-demigods? Or are you the best of devotees? The most significant word used in this verse is Siddha Sattama, which means the best of the perfect. One second, let me just plug in my computer. Oops. Okay. Which means the best of the perfect. In Bhagavad Gita 7.3, it is said, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Out of millions of persons, one may try to become a siddha, perfect, or in other words, self-realized. A self-realized person knows that he is not the body, but a spirit soul. Aham brahmasmi. Every time it says aham brahmasmi, for some reason it takes it out. But that's probably what these words are in brackets. At the present moment, practically everyone is unaware of this fact. But one who understands this has attained perfection and is therefore called siddha. When one understands that the soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, and one thus engages in the devotional service of the Supreme Soul, one becomes Siddha Sat Tama. One is then eligible to live in the Vaikuntha planets, or Krishna Loka. The word Siddha Sattama therefore refers to a liberated pure devotee. Since the Yamadūtas are servants of Yamaraj, who is also one of the Siddha Sattamas, they knew that a Siddha Sattama is above. They knew that a Siddha Sattama is above the demigods and sub-demigods, and indeed above all the living entities within this material world. The Yamadūtas therefore inquired why the Viṣṇudūtas were present where a sinful man was going to die. It should also be noted that Ajāmila was not yet dead, for the Yamadūtas were trying to snatch the soul from his heart. They could not take the soul, however, and therefore Ajāmila was not yet dead. This will be revealed in later verses. Ajāmila was simply in an unconscious state when the argument was in progress between the Yamadūtas and the Viṣṇudūtas. The conclusion of the argument was to be a decision regarding who would claim the soul of Ajāmila. Looks like there are 2 lines missing here, so let me get out of this reading view. 34 to 36. Sarve padma shaksha pitakoshe avasasa kiritina kundalino lasat pushkaramalina sarve chanutana vayasa sarve charu chaturbhuja dhanur nishangasi kadha shankar chakram bhuja shriya disha vitti miraloka kurvanta svena tejasa kim artam dharma palasya kinkaran no nishedata. That hurt my eyes. I get so used to looking at in dark mode. It's hard to look at. Okay. The order carriers of Yamaraj said, "Your eyes are just like the petals of lotus flowers, dressed in yellow silken garments, decorated with garlands of lotuses, and wearing very attractive helmets on your heads and earrings on your ears. You all appear fresh and youthful. Your 4 long arms are decorated with bows and quivers of arrows, and with swords, clubs, conch shells, discs, and lotus flowers. Your effulgence has dissipated the darkness of this place with extraordinary illumination. Now, sirs, why are you obstructing us?" Purport. Before even being introduced to a foreigner, one becomes acquainted with him through his dress, bodily features, and behavior, and can thus understand his position. Therefore, when the Yamadūtas saw the Viṣṇudūtas for the first time, they were surprised. They said, "By your bodily features, you appear to be very exalted gentlemen, and you have such celestial power that you have dissipated the darkness of this material world with your own effulgences. Why then should you endeavor to stop us from executing our duty?" It will be explained that the Yamadūtas, the order carriers of Yamaraj, mistakenly considered Ajāmila sinful. They did not know that although he was sinful throughout his entire life,
He was purified by constantly chanting the holy name of Narayan. In other words, unless one is a Vaishnav, one cannot understand the activities of a Vaishnav. The dress and bodily features of the residents of Vaikuntha Loka are properly described in these verses. The residents of Vaikuntha who are dressed with garlands and yellow silken garments, have 4 arms holding various weapons. Thus they conspicuously resemble Lord Vishnu. They have the same bodily features as Narayan because they have attained the liberation of Sarupya, but they nonetheless act as servants. All the residents of Vaikuntha Loka know perfectly well that their master is Narayan, or Krishna, and that they are all his servants. They are all self-realized souls who are Nitya Mukta, everlastingly liberated. Although they could conceivably declare themselves Narayan or Vishnu, they never do so. They always remain Krishna conscious and serve the Lord faithfully. Such is the atmosphere of Vaikuntha Loka. Similarly, one who learns the faithful service of Lord Krishna through the Krishna consciousness movement will always remain in Vaikuntha Loka and have nothing to do with the material world. Shri Shuka Uvacha Ityukte Yamadūtaiste Vasudevoktakarina Tan Pratyuchu Prahasyedan Megha Nirhadaya Gira. Shukadev Goswami continued, being thus addressed by the messengers of Yamaraj, the servants of Vasudev smiled and spoke the following words in voices as deep as the sound of rumbling clouds. Purport. The Yamadūtas were surprised to see that the Viṣṇudūtas, although polite, were hindering the rule of Yamaraj. Similarly, the Viṣṇudūtas were also surprised that the Yamadūtas, although claiming to be servants of Yamaraj, the supreme judge of religious principles, were unaware of the principles of religious action. Thus the Viṣṇudūtas smiled, thinking, what is this nonsense they are speaking? If they are actually servants of Yamaraj, they should know that Ajāmila is not a suitable candidate for them to carry off. Shri Viṣṇudūta Uchu Yuyam vai dharmarajasya yadi nirdeshakarina vrutta dharmasya nastatvam yacha dharmasya lakshanam. The blessed messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Viṣṇudūtas, said, if you are actually servants of Yamaraj, you must explain to us the meaning of religious principles and the symptoms of irreligion. Purport. This inquiry by the Viṣṇudūtas to the Yamadūtas is most important. A servant must know the instructions of his master. The servants of Yamaraj claim to be carrying out his orders, and therefore the Viṣṇudūtas very intelligently ask them to explain the symptoms of religious and irreligious principles. A Vaishnav knows these principles perfectly well because he is well acquainted with the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord says, Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja, Bhagavad Gita 1866. Give up all other varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. Therefore, surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the actual principle of religion. Those who have surrendered to the principles of material nature instead of to Krishna are all impious, regardless of their material position. Unaware of the principles of religion, they do not surrender to Krishna, and therefore they are considered sinful rascals, the lowest of men, and fools bereft of all knowledge. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7:15, Namam duskritino mudha prapadyante naradhama mayaya pahrita jnana asuram bhavamashrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. One who is not surrendered to Krishna does not know the true principle of religion. Otherwise, he would have surrendered. The question posed by the Viṣṇudūtas was very suitable. One who represents someone else must fully know that person's mission. The devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement must therefore be fully aware of the mission of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. Otherwise, they'll be considered foolish. All devotees, especially preachers, must know the philosophy of Krishna consciousness so as not to be embarrassed and insulted when they preach. an important instruction here. Katang siddhriyate danda kim vasya stanam ipsitam dandya kim karina sarve ahosvit katichindrinam. What is the process of punishing others? Who are the actual candidates for punishment? Are all karmis engaged in fruitive activities punishable, or only some of them? Purport. One who has the power to punish others should not punish everyone. Obviously, no, sorry, I didn't say that. Yeah. There are innumerable living entities, the majority of whom are in the spiritual world and are nitya mukta, everlastingly liberated. There is no question of judging these liberated living beings. Only a small fraction of the living entities, perhaps 1/4, are in the material world. And the major portion of the living entities in the material world, 8 million of the 8,400,000 forms of life, 8,400,000 forms of life, are lower than human beings. Yeah, human beings are 400,000. They are not punishable, for under the laws of material nature, they are automatically evolving. Human beings who are advanced in consciousness are responsible, but not all of them are punishable. Those engaged in advanced pious activities are beyond punishment. Only those who engage in sinful activities are punishable. Therefore, the Viṣṇudūtas particularly inquired about who is punishable and why Yamaraj has been designated to discriminate between who is punishable and who is not. How is one to be judged? What is the basic principle of authority? These are questions raised by the Viṣṇudūtas. So we will hear the Yamadūta's response, the back and forth between the Yamadūtas and Viṣṇudūtas. We'll finish that conversation tomorrow. Just looking 1 second. Let me use my keyboard. Okay. So Yamadūtas inquired, "Who are you? You appear wonderful. Why are you obstructing us?" And the Viṣṇudūtas replied, "Explain to us dharma, adharma, the process and recipients of punishment." And now tomorrow we'll hear the Yamadūtas reply, "Dharma is prescribed in the Vedas. Narayan is the supreme controller. Everyone under the modes is punishable in proportion to their adharma, as confirmed by the witnesses of sun, etc. One's past and future are understood by Yamaraj, but not the jiva who perpetually transmigrates by material enjoyment. He may be liberated by associating with the Lord and his devotees. Ajāmila lost all his Brahminical qualities by seeing a low-class affair of a prostitute. He married her, gave up his wife, and took to sinful acts for family maintenance. He didn't undergo atonement and is to be punished." So that's what we're going to read tomorrow in this first chapter. And then, that's chapter 2. 1 second. It'll be the Viṣṇudūta's response. Then, in the next chapter, we'll read about how the Viṣṇudūtas chastise the Yamadūtas, and then the Viṣṇudūtas glorify the holy name, and then Ajāmila's release and regret, Ajāmila's lamentation and resolutions, and then Ajāmila's austerities at Haridwar and the attainment of Vaikuntha. Then Shukadeva Goswami glorifies the holy name. So that's what's following in the rest of this chapter and the next chapter. All right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. I'm going to check out that link. It doesn't let me click on it here. So I'll have to go to Facebook and I'll check out the link that you sent with me. Thanks for joining though. Jai Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Vihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shila Guru Dev Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti I got it spaced out. Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Mahabhagavat Shila Gokshara Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Vishtam Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath. Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. नाम श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासुरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवश्च कृष्ण भक्ति पददेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। Dandavat pranams. Thanks for joining me today. All right, Hari Bol. See you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe.